talked to the Finance Committee and other board members about this in the past. This is really a best practice for governments to be able to lay out our policies associated with issuing debt associated with our budget. And it also gives us a yardstick that we can then use as we come to you with initial authorizations related to debt. Once again, just to reiterate, anything related to debt requires board action. So we want to make sure that you thought about it carefully, and the policy is one way in which we have been able to have a broad conversation about debt and its role in the agency and its general and the way that we go about actually incurring debt. So again, just very quickly, the debt management policy reviews the scope and authority for debt issuance. Again, that requires board approval, usually 2 steps along the way, if not more. Usually deals with debt term and structure, purposes for the debt, the security for various kinds of debt, and then limitations. And a key, again, policy issue here related to one of the sensitive items you've often heard is what is the right level of debt related to our ongoing payroll tax revenues. And again, I think as we've done the review of other governments and other transit agencies, we can't say that there's any standard, but if there's one that we think makes sense, it's somewhere between 5 and 10% is the right number. And this goes right in the middle at 7.5% in terms of that limitation. It also requires the involvement of an independent financial advisor, as well as begins to address the steps along a sort of competitive or negotiated placements of debt. And just to note, the debt management policy should have had on top of it attachment A. I think it was pretty obvious that the debt management policy that was attached to your staff report was actually mislocated and should have been attached to the resolution as attachment A to the resolution. Just to note that.
Other questions of the general manager?
Just one, Mr. Chairman.
Board member Levin.
Yeah, on 7.0, use of derivatives. Do we use derivatives now? That's a terrible...
We do not. And what the policy says very clearly is that before we even had the slight thought that we would ever do that, we would have to come and get board approval. So.
Yeah, just all I can do is look at the word. Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I'd just like to vote to make that very happy to have this long evening meeting, and also to, I think the 3 of us on the Finance Committee appreciate all of your hard work, your thoroughness, especially in such an uncertain time. And you just said the last couple of years, it seems like even longer than that. So I hope we're going in a more positive direction, but there's a lot of items here that are still moving, and appreciate all that you do to put all of this together, and then Neil just gets to report on it. So wanted to let you know that.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 110424 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, authorizing a contract with ICMA RC for retirement plan administration services.
Thank you, Mr. Board President, members of the board. Again, handiwork of our CFO. Noticed early on that we had a number of dispersed plans or providers for our defined benefit retirement plans, or our 457 plans, and our defined contribution plan for the management pension plan, or our 401A plans. And then what that caused is sort of a look at both the fees and the services that were really employed, the fees paid by the employees who own these accounts. And so what we have done is to go back out to the marketplace to see if we can find better service and lower fees. And indeed, I think this contract is a very positive step for the employees to both see fees reduced by half or more, plus additional services available from the provider. This is a very qualified firm. We've had the involvement of the ATU and many others involved in looking at this procurement, and I think there is a general agreement among all of those who have been involved in the procurement that this is a very positive step for our employees. So with that, would recommend your approval.
Questions of the general manager? Not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 110425 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon authorizing contracts with Broadway Cab LLC and Green Transportation Company LLC for lift demand response accessibility cab transportation services.
Yes, Mr. Board President, members of the board, as the staff report notes, cab companies actually provide about 10% of our Lyft ADA accessible service, and it's backup service, and sometimes they provide service to places where the larger Lyft vans can't go, and there are a number of other circumstances where a cab is the efficient way to provide that service. We do regular rebids of the contract and sort of our best practices of looking for competitive pricing and good service. In this case, we are recommending 2 contracts be awarded, one to Broadway Cab and the other to Green Transportation. Green Transportation Services is actually a disadvantaged business firm. They don't operate in the entire region, so that's why Broadway Cab is a larger contract. It operates in the whole region. But in the area that Green Transportation offers services, we believe that they'll offer a very good choice for our Lyft dispatchers. With that, we have experts here in the audience, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to field them.
Questions of the general manager?
Is this a renewal of an existing arrangement with those two, or is it new?
There was a previous contract. I don't know who the previous provider was.
The previous contract is with Broadway Cab, it is expired. This new contract that will also be with Green Transportation, that's the first time for them.
Other questions?
If I may, what is the comparative cost of service for our in-house compared to Broadway compared to Green?
Well, that's a great question, and part of it has to do with the ability to do multiple rides on our in-house service. Dan, do you have or Susan, a notion?
The cab trips are approximately $29 per ride, and the other Lyft trips are approximately $26 per ride. So the cab trips are more costly on average per ride.
Susan Florentino, who manages our Lyft program, right over.
Other questions? I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 110426 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon authorizing a development agreement with the City of Portland by and through the City of Portland Bureau of Parks and Recreation, ZRZ Realty Company, and Oregon Health and Science University, OHSU, for the Greenway Transition Trails in South Waterfront.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, as you can probably tell by the title, this is a complicated transaction that has a lot of parties to it, but I think a very good story at the end of the day. What we are facing is, of course, the requirement of the city to have a greenway trail, as it should, along the riverfront in the South Waterfront area. That trail was not the obligation of the Portland-Milwaukee project, but as we begin to put a bridge over the top of it, we had, of course, very important design considerations associated with that, but we also needed to figure out how to transition from the bridge itself to the Greenway Trail. And so there was an effort underway then to make sure that the costs of those transitional trails were allocated fairly between what would have happened if the bridge wasn't there and what happens when the bridge is there. Based on that, we've negotiated this agreement with all of the parties here, which allow us to deposit a fixed sum with the Parks Bureau, and then at a future date, those connections will actually be made, not by TriMet, but by the other parties involved. We think it's a very cost-effective, very timely, and very fair solution to what was kind of a gnarly problem in terms of defining responsibilities for these important public improvements. And recall that our bridge does provide a very substantial bike and pedestrian way on either side, so it will be a very busy spot once the bridge is in place.
Question to the general manager?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The cost is to build the trail because the property's donated, right?
The property is donated, but again, part of it is that because we're now dealing with transitions from a height to down to there's more property required in order to create those slopes.
You mean you're coming off the bridge?
Yes.
Yes, you're coming off.
So additional property was required from the property owners as we went into that.
Okay. All right. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Got it.
Opposed? Motion carries.